Looking for music that lifts your spirit and fills your heart? Experience the powerful sound of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. Now streaming on all your favorite music platforms. Find the Tabernacle Choir on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon Music, and Pandora. Let the music of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square inspire you today and every day. Whether you're at home, in the car, or on the go, enjoy the beauty of their world-renowned sound anytime. The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, streaming now.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Trajan Wealth brings you this portion of the program, TRAJAN Wealth.com. Trajan Wealth for all your trusted local needs in retirement. Look, no sugarcoating it. Hasn't been fun to watch the Jazz this year very often. And if it is, it's because we've enjoyed the development of some of the young guys. Other markets aren't like, man, I really can't wait for some of our younger dudes who normally wouldn't be playing on this roster to get 30 or 40 minutes a game. It was 48 minutes the last time out for
Bezembang.
Bezembang gets himself. And by the way, I think we need to change the pick and roll to the Bezembang. And nobody's taking me up on it. Now, partially that might be because we don't know what the future of Bezembang looks like with this franchise.
Keep selling it.
Our program brought to you this hour by Trajan Wealth, TRAJAN Wealth.com. That's TrajanWealth.com for all your trusted local needs in retirement. Chandler Holt joining us on the program. Chandler walked through the office and I went, it was a good day to get Chandler on. You know why? He was at availability today, and they rolled out a couple of the older guys, a couple of the veterans, and those are the ones you want to handle these final press conferences, Chandler, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice to talk to some of the guys as the season sort of winds down to an end, probably thankfully for a lot of Jazz fans.
Yeah, so, I'm not going to sit here and ask you to break down Bezembang's game. Let's talk about things that people are really, really wanting to talk about right now. And I think the first thing I'm looking at right now in these last few games, Chandler, is it possible that the Jazz could lock up a bottom four spot and guarantee that they don't convey that first-round pick, that lottery pick coming up here in June?
Oh, yeah, there's absolutely a chance. And as the last couple weeks have shaken out, it looks almost likely. The Jazz are on a 10-game losing streak, which is the longest in the NBA right now. They're out tanking everyone else in the tank race right now. But, yeah, right now they are tied with the Kings with 21 wins apiece for the fourth worst team in the NBA. And as the tiebreaker has it, the Jazz technically sit below them, although it will come down to basically a coin flip at the end of the year. The tiebreaker doesn't totally decide the sort of order in the lottery, so it will come down to that. If they were to finish with the fifth worst record, there is a 1 in 175 chance that they would fall to 9 and then, of course, lose their pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder with that top 8 protection. But the Kings play against the Warriors. The Warriors have been struggling as of late. I'm pretty sure they play the Warriors on a second night of a back-to-back, so maybe Steph Curry doesn't suit up in that game. But, yeah, if you're a Jazz fan and you're looking forward to the future, you're hoping for 2 more losses and a Sacramento win mixed in there.
Well, on top of it, you've got the league with the microscope on the Kings right now. Doug Christie taking a lot of the blame, and he should. He's not a very good coach, but he's taking a lot of the blame on what happened with the with Tankgate. I don't know. At this point, does the league actually care? We seem like we're complaining about a bunch of stuff here, but the reality is that as teams get to the very, very end, everyone in the league knows it doesn't matter where the bottom 10 end this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I think how the whole tanking discourse has gone this season is ridiculous. Adam Silver sort of slapped the wrist of the Jazz and the Pacers with the fine, said, hey, we're going to be cracking down on this, and then it's been radio silence from the league office since then. They have talked about how they're going to roll out all these changes allegedly heading into next year, but yeah, to me it's ridiculous. This has happened for decades and decades. It's sort of a mute talking point at this point, but yeah, I am, as I assume a lot of other people, excited to just see how the standings shake out, and we're less than a week away to just find out what position the Jazz will be in heading into the draft lottery.
Well, no matter what position in that lottery they will be in, they're going to get a great player because I'm sure you're doing your homework. We've been looking at it, especially watching a lot of these Big 12 players this year, led by A.J. DeBonsa. This draft is loaded. You look at this talent. You've studied drafts. I mean, where does this rank in even recent drafts, or I don't know, however far you want to go. There's a reason why everyone's tanking right now, and it's because this talent in this draft is so deep.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think you would have to maybe go back to 2003 to see a top 3/4 as good as you see in this year. And, of course, that is the LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade top 3 in 2003. I really do think there is potential for A.J. DeBonta, Darren Peterson, and Cam Boozer to all be franchise-changing players. And in a lot of other drafts, you land at 3 and you're like, oh, that sucks. Like last year, you would have gotten VJ Edgecombe. VJ's great, but he's no Cooper Flagg. There might be 3 Cooper Flaggs in this draft. Of course, it remains to be seen, but you're absolutely right. There is a reason that the tanking is as it is right now.
Chandler, as you spoke today with, I think, with Nurk and Kevin Love, those have been guys I think that we've been pretty pleasantly surprised. I mean, we knew what kind of a character dude I think that Kevin Love was coming in. I had my preconceived notions for Nurkic, and I think he added a really, really important piece of that veteran presence in the locker room, more so than I thought he was going to. And out of those two guys, I know that they're both doing the whole, if they'll sign me for, if they sign me up for however many million they're going to end up trying to get, we'll come back and play. But how much of a chance do you think it is to see those two guys back on the roster with the Jazz next year?
Yeah. First of all, I agree with you. I think those two have been some of the biggest surprises of the Jazz season. Nurkic was on the down and out in his last couple of stops, and then everyone, I think, expected Kevin Love to be traded to a contender by the deadline, and neither of those things happened. Nurkic had the back-to-back-to-back triple-doubles earlier in the year. Of course, there's commissioner speak, there's player speak, media training, et cetera. Players go, I'd love to come back, and maybe they don't mean it. I think that both of those guys would absolutely welcome a return to Utah next year as the Jazz try to make a step up to playoff contention. To give it a chance, I don't know. That's a good question. I think the Jazz have a lot to figure out with their salaries right now. Of course, you have the Walker-Kessler extension in line, Keontae's extension either this summer or next summer. But I do think it would be welcome. I would say it's probably a pretty solid chance you see both of them back. When the impact they have next year, that is definitely up in the air. But, I mean, I could see Yusuf Nurkic being like a very solid 10 to 20-minute backup big for the Jazz next year. But I think everything's in the cards right now.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask this next question, come based on that, because we're looking ahead to next season already, and this team's going to be really good. And we basically know who the starting 5 are. We don't know who the lottery pick is yet. It's going to be a great player that they're going to want to have minutes for. There's not a lot of spots left on this team, Chandler. If you start thinking about it, there may not be enough room for all these guys we're talking about. What young players in this team would you like to see come back and have a spot in that rotation? And I'm not talking about, obviously, Ace Bailey, but your Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, Cody Williams, Bryce Sensabaugh. Yeah. Where do these guys fit? Because whatever your rotation is, and I'm sure they want to mix some veterans in there as well because they're going to try to be winning games next year. Where's the room for these guys? Or are we going to see a lot of movement where they use some of these younger guys to try to bolster the veteran presence on their roster?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, I thought that I had sort of a preconceived notion about what the backup lineup would be for the Jazz next year. But a couple weeks ago, Danny Ainge hopped on the zone, and he said that you can only really have 2 young players on your team at a time. And that sort of made me raise my eyebrow. Well, okay, if you're the Jazz, then those 2 young players are probably Ace Bailey and your upcoming lottery pick. What does that mean for Cody Williams, Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyle Filipowski, all these guys who are young and still developing? I really don't know. To me, that does sort of paint the picture that guys like John Konchar and Svi Mykhailiuk are going to be getting playing time next year. Because maybe you would think, maybe we'll play Bryce Sensabaugh over Svi just because he has that upside. But like you said, you want to mix some veterans in there, especially if you're looking to make the playoffs, especially when you're in the playoffs. So it's a really good question. I will say all year I have loved what we have seen from Cody Williams after what he's done in his rookie or after what he did in his rookie year. He made an awesome jump, put on about 15 pounds in the offseason, and he actually looks like an NBA player for most of his minutes this year. And I just think of Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyle Filipowski, Isaiah Collier even, he really projects to be the best perimeter defender. And I think both playmaking and perimeter defense are sort of the two questionable areas for the Jazz when you look at what their roster looks like on paper heading into next year. So I really do think, similar to what Keontae George did in the last offseason, made the jump to a borderline all-star. I don't know if I expect that from any of the guys we're talking about in this conversation, but I do think it really depends on what these guys can do in the offseason to sort of prove their worth heading into next year.
Chandler Holt joins us. He's one of our Utah Jazz insiders for KSLSports.com, and he and Ben Anderson do the Jazz Notes podcast. You can download that wherever you find podcasts. You can go on our website as well and find it there. Over the year, I mean, look, it's been a grind for these players. It's been a grind for us to have to talk about the team on a daily basis to try to figure out kind of what the more, these storylines are. But what has been the biggest surprise for you on a team that is not trying to win particularly many games? What's been a surprise for you with this team maybe that you looked at and you went, you know what? That might actually be something that could – I mean, obviously Keontae George playing well is probably number one for most people, but we haven't seen him for like a month and a half. What's been something that has impacted this team more than just even the rise of Keontae George this year?
Well, you're absolutely right. Keontae George is the obvious answer there. What I would say is I think Will Hardy has sort of been the silver lining of this tank. And it's funny because he brings the good and the bad. He brings the good of showing you that I really do think he's going to be a good coach next year when the Jazz are actually trying to win games, and the bad, but it's good if you're the Jazz front office, is that he manages to do whatever he needs to do to rack up these losses. Because I think it is sort of common knowledge that the Jazz are a better team than what their record is right now. If they rolled out everything they had, they put pedal to the metal, I think they could be around a 35 to 45 win team. But you look at some of these games, man, like it was the Denver game is the one that sticks out to me, where the Jazz, where they had this half lineup, no Keontae, no Lowry, no Jaren Jackson, no Walker, the list goes on, and they're hanging with the Nuggets, who are right now on a 10-game win streak up until the fourth quarter, and then you see sort of some of those silly lineups that get rolled out late in the game. I am really excited to see what Will Hardy can do next year with a competent team and also with sort of the green light. I think it will be the first time Will Hardy has the green light in his coaching career. And I really do think he can prove himself as like a top 10 coach in the NBA, which is just not really a platform he's had at this point.
I think after the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, we're now looking at the playoffs differently, because I think as Jazz fans, you're going to watch this thing play out and say, okay, with the team we're going to have next year, how would we match up with the Nuggets? How would we match up with the Spurs or the Thunder? As you get ready to watch these playoffs, I just think the Western Conference especially is just going to be phenomenal. I think the Celtics are the best team in the East, but these playoff series in the West are just going to be battles. How do you see it all shaken out? And do you do the same thing? Are you watching these games? Are you going to be watching these games in the playoffs and thinking, wow, what do the Jazz need to do to compete with this team or that team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I am a basketball junkie. My love for the game extends past just my job and the Jazz. So, yeah, I've been watching all the teams in the NBA. I'm very excited for the playoffs. I'm excited to see Victor Wembanyama in his first playoff series. And, it's really just looking like for teams in the West, can you beat the Thunder or can you beat the Spurs, right? And then it's sort of looking like at this point it's going to be those two in the Western Conference Finals if the standings stay as they are right now. Something I will say for Jazz fans who are looking at the playoffs from sort of their own fan bias angle is I would say look at the Lakers, right? The Lakers, they sort of got hot at the right time late in the year, but then all of a sudden, snap of the fingers, two of your top three players go down, and now everyone in the sort of 5 to 8 range is scrambling to try to face the Lakers in the first round because you get those two injuries, and now, hey, that might be just an easy bypass in the first round. So I will say it's unexpected. Injuries can happen. And, of course, I wouldn't get too far ahead of sort of matching yourself up right now for Jazz fans as to sort of comparing yourself to other Western Conference teams because the league landscape changes fast. And whether it be players switching teams or just getting injured, I will say and it's way too early to tell because we haven't really seen an extended look of the Jazz's core together, of course, with Jaren Jackson. But I do think there's a chance they could sneak into the top 6 into the Western Conference next year and avoid the play-in entirely. And I think that would be one of the best case scenarios.
You talked about Will Hardy and the stuff that he's gone through as a coach. Losing as much as this team has over the first 4 years, how do you transition that coaching version of suddenly you have this insane, starting five potentially? That seems like a bit of whiplash. It's a good kind of whiplash, but I'm wondering what kind of things that Will Hardy could immediately bring to a team that might be a contender right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question, and it gives me a chance to address I've seen some of the conversation from Jazz fans how can you expect to be good next year when our record is this now and we just added one player, or all of these guys are injury prone because they've had all this lingering stuff over the past couple of years. I do think it's going to be a fast switch. And, of course, I think there will be some getting used to it in probably the first half of next year. But I do think that this team will catch their stride. And, of course, they have some things to figure out. I think they will have some shortcomings just based on the personnel. But that's for the front office to figure out. And that's for the players to sort of come together and sort of close those gaps one another. And Keontae, I think, is the perfect example of how he stepped up as a leader this year. I think all the guys really like each other. And I think they are both figuring out and mastering how to play alongside one another. And I think Will Hardy, like you said, it's going to be whiplash, but I think he has all of the tools to make it happen. And it's just a very exciting time right now, I must say.
Back to the playoffs, we talked about the Thunder and the Spurs. Do you think the Spurs are ready already? You always talk about skipping steps. This team would certainly be skipping steps if they made a run to the NBA Finals, or the Thunder just that good, or do you have a wild card in the West that could make a run and upset somebody?
I do think the Spurs are ready, because I think if you think about it, we had this same conversation last year and 2 years ago with the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? Your best player's 25 years old and you have the eighth youngest or whatever lineup in the NBA. And I think it's just having those fresh legs, I think it really helps in the playoffs. And the thing I will say is, of course, Wemby, he's missed the past couple of games. I think you need him in the lineup. The Spurs are still a good team without him, but you need your 1A guy in order to win these playoff series. In terms of a wild card, I mean, at this point, you have to say the Minnesota Timberwolves, just because they're the sixth seed right now, so they're by no means favored in any of their series, but they made the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row, and Anthony Edwards is one of the top 5 to 8 best players on the planet, and I think having one of those players can really give you a chance in any series. Yeah, I don't know. Looking lower than that, I don't think I have any faith in any play-in team, but just because of the sort of the history that the Timberwolves have with Ant-Man at the helm, I would say that would be my wild card.
Chandler Holt. Chandler, thanks for taking some extra time there, and all the back and forths and all of the player availability, and then, of course, the Jazz Notes podcast itself, where Ben and Chandler chop it up about this Jazz team. You're going to get the end of season. I don't know. Do they do the traditional locker clean out when they end on the road?
They're not doing it this year. They end the season in L.A., and I think they're just dispersing from there.
They're like, I've never heard of a locker. What? Just burn mine.
1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Yeah, that's it. I told you. All right. Chandler, we appreciate it, man. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you after the season here.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
There you go.